Recorded. Hello everyone, thank you for coming. We are LSESU Music Business Society. Today we say our last name after really quick SoundOn with Graham.
My name is Josh Jeer.
Okay, good. He is the head of A&R at SoundOn, which is a company of Gachot. We'll let him explain more. But just to start, how did you get into the industry?
I got into the music industry firstly through playing in bands when I was very young. I'm from Belfast in Northern Ireland, and I played around the city in these punk bands, putting on shows. I saw bands that I was a rival with getting higher up in the bill and gigs, so I started putting my own gigs on so that I could put my band where I wanted on the bill, and that sort of turned into becoming effectively a concert promoter all the way from the ages of 16 until graduating university. And there was slight overlap in being a concert promoter of my own accord to getting an internship, a university internship at a record label in LA, Warner Brothers Records. Then when I graduated university, I kind of moved into paid roles at major labels. Over the course of 10 to 12 years, just chipped away at that and moved through different roles within marketing into A&R. I just developed my career primarily through working my way up through a ladder at major labels, really. And then moved over to SoundOn to some music.
Yeah. Can you tell us what exactly SoundOn does and how it supports artists?
SoundOn is a music distribution platform powered by Gachot. So when I say distribution, it really, a music distributor, their role and responsibility is, if you're trying to skim it down to the most simplest form, it's getting an artist's music on DSPs. And when I say DSPs, I mean Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere you can consume music. So a streaming service effectively, or a downloading service like iTunes, or anywhere where you can effectively consume music as a transaction. Yeah, so SoundOn is a music distributor. Differs slightly terminologically, and let's say a label, in that you could be a label who is distributed by a distributor. So if I'm an independent record company, I could have a distribution deal with a Leave or ADA or SoundOn, Virgin, The Orchard, and then the relationship there is that label puts his music through that distributor, and the distributor handles the delivery of the repertoire to places like Spotify, and also collaborates with the label in the promotion of the music. And that can either be in the form of a label or an artist, so a distributor can just do that sort of service directly with an artist as well. Over the past 5 to 10 years, I think the services offered by a music distributor and a record label have become increasingly similar, to the point in which there really is a tremendous amount of difference in what either do. And so it's kind of a bit of a blurred line between those areas these days.
What exactly do your responsibilities as kind of big?
My responsibility in SoundOn as head of A&R, I sort of set the strategy for our signings. What areas that we're looking in to sign artists and labels, and whether that's in the UK. I would look after Europe. So right now in our iteration, that primarily means the UK and Germany, secondarily in the UK as we're still developing. For me, it would be about setting the tone for our sounding strategy in relevant cultural areas like hip hop, rap, dance music, pop, viral music, alternative, and working towards our goals within the company in certain areas, negotiating contracts with artist managers and their lawyers, being active within the discovery process and assisting my team in developing and setting strategy for how we discover music and where we're looking as well, what we're looking for, what quantifies our decisions in what we're offering. So I look after a team of 4. And yeah, that's sort of it. Once we sign an artist, it's then the role of the A&Rs, whether that's me as the head of A&R or anyone on my team, to effectively run the project. So if I sign an artist, I then introduce the internal team to the project and set parameters and expectations around what we need out of whether it's a one single deal or an album deal, or marketing or DSP pitching people, or promo teams or external consultants within radio or press. It's about getting all of those guys together and making sure that the project's running smoothly and as it should be. That's also a key role of any A&R person. Traditionally, it would have also been an expectation to be, putting sessions together for artists, writing sessions, finding the right producer or mix engineer or mastering engineer for a record, working alongside artists and management there. That's not quite as much at the forefront of the standard responsibilities of A&R, particularly within distribution at the moment. I do it, not as much as I would have done 10 years ago. I think that's just based on volume. A lot of A&R people work regardless of where they are signing more than they ever have. So my responsibility comes a little more attuned to like business development as much as anything else. I'm really responsible for content supply, if you were to try and put a term on it.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to signing that discovery process that you're talking about, what exactly is it that you look for in artists, maybe just beyond the musical ability?
I think we're looking for authenticity and connectivity. It's like the parameters around what will make a record notable and moving in a way that they could benefit from having a release partner attached to it, whether that's a distributor or a major label or an independent label or whoever it may be. I think if we can recognize that there is a scalability within a song or an artist's career in general, and that we feel as if we can add value to that process, and that then it's an artist that we want to work with, that can often come in the form of an artist who might not compete and put a record out and just love the music, and we saw on a show that being able to get 200 people at their gig because being posting content on our platform or anywhere else, and that to us proves, hey, this is an artist that knows how to encapsulate an audience that's early on before even releasing music. Therefore, we feel as if we can scale that when they do. It might also be that somebody's put their first song out and Spotify have maybe supported it, and through that it's starting to connect with an audience and gain momentum, and we feel like we can also step in and help it continue to grow on a trajectory beyond what's already happening through a ton of different avenues for an artist to turn a spark into a flame, whether that's, like I say, in the live sector, through DSPs, through YouTube, through our platform TikTok, of course. We're in a place where TikTok, holds a lot of sway in virality at the moment as well.
Mm-hmm. How do you make sure that artists go beyond just that virality, and how do you make sure that they turn into a long-term career?
I think it's critical to, firstly, it's funny, I talk about A&R, traditional record making. It's critical to have the right music, and I think that at the moment, a lot of companies within recorded music partnerships are signing tracks that are already out because of what they're doing. And in many cases, they're doing that in a one single deal. So I might sign an artist for one song. Traditionally, you may have signed an artist for 3 albums. Traditionally, an A&R person may have signed 3 artists a year and spent 50% of their time putting them in writing sessions or recording sessions or whatever it may be. The sheer volume of new artists in the marketplace and the sheer accessibility to even the concept of artistry has changed the dynamic in which you really could not viably put your chips on 2 to 3 artists a year. It wouldn't be worth your time in regards to the probability of those artists developing in a way that would offset your limitations of how much you're signing. The reason that is because, if I have access to an Apple Mac, I could call myself an artist. There's nothing wrong with that, but what it does mean is artist to listener ratio has greatly changed. And therefore, in order to create viable content supply that creates business, you've got to sign more. If you sign more, you can develop less. And that's where these service industries come in. Distribution is flourishing on that basis. So a lot of the development creativity is being collaborated with, let's say with an artist manager, an independent label hub, and the artists themselves in collaboration with a distributor or a label or otherwise. How we attempt our best to ensure a long-term growth trajectory and career for an artist is by trying to push authenticity within artist development and make sure that we're actually growing the artist in multiple spaces rather than just one or two. If an artist goes viral on TikTok, then for us as SoundOn, well, it's about immediate migration from TikTok, their own platform, into DSPs like Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, as well as servicing records to radio at the right time, working in collaboration with artists, booking agents, and concert promoters to coordinate strategies that include multiple areas of an artist's growing audience. That's effectively what creates tangible, real life, artistry rather than one-dimensional, quick moments, if you like.
What are some key areas that you think that artists should focus on in the early stages?
It sounds so ridiculous to say this, but I think the most critical area an artist should focus on is their music. The way culture moves right now is such that you can actually bypass extremely high quality music when moving through certain tiers of audience development. We've seen repeated examples of artists with, like, let's say, okay songs that have somehow captured a moment culturally within virality, and therefore the song has far eclipsed the artist's stage and development. That's when you have artists signing monster record deals on the basis of what's happening with the song long before they're actually ready to hold the capacity for even being signed. These artists quite frequently being signed too early, and their expectations are misaligned on the basis of a track going extremely viral.
Do you, in terms of the virality, do you remember the first time that you maybe thought that TikTok is essential for it?
I remember the first time I realized TikTok was essential for music discovery. An A&R, one facet of A&R is music discovery, of course. A&R scouting is music discovery. I think that TikTok has changed what people look for in artistry, right? And when I go back to saying an artist should concentrate on the music, the things that have changed within our industry is that the music is genuinely not always at the top of the list in what people look for or find in their research as an A&R. So like you could have a song that's for any reason gone viral, let's say, and that means, you know, it's doing X amount of creations on TikTok, it's had X amount of views, therefore X amount of streams on Spotify. But it might be for a non-music reason that it's going in that direction. Let's say, you know, I choose to quantify this area as one of two things: entertainment or art. You know, are you chasing entertainment or are you chasing art? Are you chasing entertainment in the vehicle of music, i.e. music that can have the potential to go viral? And if you sign an artist on that basis and then, you know, put a deal around them, an album deal or something, you're then working backwards to try and fill in the missing pieces that were never there in the first place because they have a song that's going viral. Whereas on the other hand, you could have an outstanding artist with extraordinarily tasteful, incredible music who doesn't have social media yet. You've got to work backwards in that sense. You've got the great music, but not the audience. So I think, culturally speaking, audiences and tastes are at times not misaligned, but at odds. You run out of time. So
You said, you know, that it's at odds. Then right now, what is the number one way you see artists breaking out? Is it not
artists breaking?
Yeah, and
building a following breaking. Yeah, I think in a large context, yes. TikTok definitely provides audiences with the opportunity to discover new music of any ilk. Like, I was in a record store yesterday talking about this artist from the 1990s called Duster. Right? Has anyone heard of Duster? Yeah? Okay. So, like, here's an example of how much variety there is in what's happening. Like, this Duster act is an act from the 90s, post-rock, semi-instrumental music, borderline obscure. Somebody somewhere started posting their music on TikTok, and it's got more and more viral than a company called Lovato, whose business model is tracing obscure music and reissuing it when it's no longer available. They find them, they reissue the record, and this music is now like the band have gotten back together after 25 years. They're from like somewhere in California, and you know, if you were to go onto their Spotify, they'd have a couple of 100,000 monthly listeners, maybe more, and their records are all over record shops around the Western Hemisphere, all because it started pick up on TikTok, right? That's very far away culturally from the idea that TikTok breaks silly dances in pop music. You know what I mean? And I think the fact that TikTok as an app or Douyin in China has 1 billion plus, maybe 2 billion active users really means that it's just an app for an opportunity to reach an audience. There's no genre specification whatsoever. Anyone who consumes music and has TikTok has the opportunity to discover any form of new music, whether that's the game, like Kate Bush running up that hill, had a total resurgence because of the platform. May Stevens, if we ever break up, maybe a more, let's say, cliched example of how something can break on TikTok, but from A to Z, the opportunity comes through the platform on the basis that so many people consume all forms of media on TikTok.
Did you know that this was going to happen when you first joined Count?
Of course. Yeah, I did. Prior to joining SoundOn, I worked in major record companies for over 10 years, the entirety of my post-education career. We spoke prior about distribution and record labels and independent, major labels and what all of that means. I think distribution in general is a new frontier, but for me, the idea of that new frontier within the context of TikTok, the very place that changed the direction of music consumption, was alluring to me. So that's why I decided to take a step out of major record labels and into a startup tech-based music adjacent environment in order to how I saw it, take what I had learned from a multitude of areas in my career and apply them to a new dynamic and scenario.
So you mentioned distribution or component. So you joined ADA at a time where you that ADA, right?
ADA, as in Warner Music Society? Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So you joined it at a time where distribution itself was fairly new. Right?
Yeah, I did.
So
yeah.
how is that experience like? How do you think distribution can for the evolution?
Well, I speak within the context of how music people think, music industry. Like prospective music industry executives think, you might grow up and go to the LSE, and when you're an undergraduate, think, I've always loved the idea of working for a record label, Polydor Records, Columbia Records, whatever it may be, and you get an idea in your head that there's a certain glitz and glamour attached to your ambition. When I first joined ADA, distribution was not a part of that. It was this more administrative-based area optically that had sort of less glitz and glamour than if you worked at Warner Brothers Records. It was probably more based on the fact that imprints held a lot more cultural weight than they do today. By imprints, I mean record labels, Archer, Warner, Atlantic, Columbia. So when I joined ADI in 2014, it was only sort of becoming more accessible to any artists, right? Prior to that, distribution was primarily a physical offering, and therefore, quite right, a little more back office administrative based. Getting a CD or a vinyl from a pressing plant to rough trade or HMV was really what distribution was. But actually, since the dawn of Spotify and therefore streaming services as well, and distribution then became getting a record from a hard drive to a streaming service, and that's a lot less. There's a lot less stages to that on a physical level. Once that started to establish itself within distribution, so did services. Okay, we'll put your record up. We'll sort your record out for Spotify and Apple. We'll also pitch it to Spotify as part of our deal with you and make sure that you get New Music Friday. From there, it evolved into, we'll hire a radio plugger, and we'll help you with your artwork, and we'll help you make a music video. And all of a sudden, distribution very quickly became really not a tremendous amount different to the offering of a record company, frontline label as we refer to it as, or a major label,
Mm-hmm. You worked at Warner for about 8 years.
Second time around, yeah.
How did you say it differs to your experience?
I think at major labels, you have a very specific role within a very specific department, within a very specific label. And you kind of just get on with it. You walk in, you do your job, you collaborate with others who do their jobs, and you go on. And there are benefits to that in so many ways that, the players in the pitch, you all have their position. Where that differs, the first thing I noticed as a difference as somebody who had only worked at major record labels prior to working in TikTok was that within the culture of ByteDance, which is TikTok's parent company, there was a lot more fluidity around the definition of what people were there to do. Things changed. Like I could come in this, I'm not saying it has happened, but feasibly it could happen. I could come in as an A&R manager and leave as a computer engineer. You know, there's a lot of room for adaptation that if you weren't prepared for it and didn't sign up to it, you could consider to be outside of, you know, the reason if you applied for a job because it was a certain job and then all of a sudden that job changes, you could understandably feel a bit like, whoa, like I didn't say I was going to do this. But I think within tech, that's an expectation. In product-based environments, they adapt to what they deem to be working or not working, or new directives. And us music industry people, we aren't traditionally too malleable. Like if I, you know, set out to be an A&R manager, it would be very, you know, if I went to, let's say I went to Warner Music Group as an A&R manager, and 6 months into the job was told, right, now you're going to be a marketing manager. No one would put up with that. I'm not saying that happens at TikTok, but in different ways it happens. So I think it's more ready for change and adaptation than the environment that I personally experienced within major labels. Whether you want to call that innovative or not, I'm not sure, but I think by the time I left major labels, the opportunities for artists external to major labels had grown exponentially to the point in which they were competing not only with each other, but with there's never been a larger variety of options that certain major labels have had to compete with than there is today.
Mm-hmm. So going back to what you said before, so you can't really switch roles, I guess, at Warner. But did you come in working as marketing? And
that's true, yeah. I did, yeah, but that was those were different. How to put this? I did switch, but in a totally different set of scenarios, circumstantially speaking. I held a dual role at ADA. We launched a frontline label in the scene and business unit, and I kind of transferred out of one role into another, rather than had a role put upon me. Or yeah.
How did you navigate go into it?
Well, I only worked in marketing for a very short period of time on a very junior level. You know, when I started major labels, it was the tail end piracy era. So like when people were like illegally downloading music, and bearing in mind Spotify was only invented in 2008. Really, that, you know, wasn't really a serious offering in the UK until, let's say, 2010 or 11. When I joined the record industry, people were just trying anything. Like roles were A&R marketing were merged on the basis of that no one was buying music. You used to have like marketing departments coming up with all sorts of ideas, like to try and make money, like, you know, gloves, like Bon Mario, like you Red Hot Chili Pepper gloves were like, do you know what I mean? And so when I joined the industry, it was a totally different time. And I started my career in marketing as an intern. Just so you get an internship, you take it. Then within 3 months, I was an A&R and marketing intern and assistant. Then I got a temporary job at Sony as an international marketing assistant. And from there, I went back to Warner, and like this bit of a blank canvas. The role just evolved. That particular role evolved, but the marketing element of my career was short-lived and very junior, to the point in which if I were a marketing assistant or an A&R assistant or a sync assistant, really the key word in the role is assistant. you know. So you're off that on space.
Yeah. So, what was the final thought that made you move to SoundOn? Because, like we said before, like it was very new to John, but obviously Warner was very established. So, how did you make that decision to move to SoundOn?
Well, I thought that if 90% in my head, it's just not a quotable statistic, if 90% of culture is flowing through TikTok, wouldn't it be interesting to join TikTok's music distribution offer as it's being founded? I saw it as an exciting long-term opportunity in comparison to major labels, quite well established for a very, very long time. In fact, the record company I worked for when I last parted from records, its tagline is established in 1896. So I thought to myself, well, maybe it's worth trying something that was established the same year I joined. Totally different.
Yeah. Because working at almost a startup that's still under a very good company with TikTok and Line Dance is still very big. Is it different to like working at a regular startup?
Well, I've never worked at a regular startup, unfortunately. I suspect it is in that you're working within a startup, within a startup, within a startup. ByteDance is a startup. Well, it's not at this point, but I suppose the similarities are that you've got to be scrappy. And like, here are the differences. I work in apart from records within Warner Music Group. Everyone there is there for music. It's a music company, right? I go in, your colleagues are all ultra music fans. If I walk into ByteDance SoundOn, I'm hot desking. I could be sitting next to a computer engineer or an e-commerce executive. The SoundOn team is small. It's sort of like you got to carve out your own path and prove that SoundOn is growing within the universe by guts. So it's not in that sense, it's nothing like a major label. I walk into the office and if we only go in 3 days a week and work from home for 2, I might not see a colleague go in the office today. I have to go in. There's a lot of virtual meetings. I think it's a crossroads between music and tech culture, which is exciting.
I wanted to ask, earlier this year, TikTok had some listings with Universal, and now they have some, they're renegotiating their deals with Warner. Does this in any way affect the artists that is happening with Sidemen?
It did affect artists that SoundOn when Universal Music Publishing took their music offer platform, and it affected anybody who had, if you had a song that the Universal Music Publishing songwriter had been a part of writing, even if it were like 5%, the whole song came down. So it would have affected us on that basis, as it would have anybody. But we really had no involvement whatsoever as SoundOn in the licensing negotiations between TikTok and Universal Music. Yeah.
And so that's the current deal with where is that or not SoundOn being able to reach out to independent artists directly?
It's real. That's not something I've been involved with at all. I really couldn't speak on that at all.
Do you see the relationship or to sum up in the custom record labels maybe evolving the next few years?
SoundOn specifically, yeah. I mean, SoundOn is a distributor, right? So if you're a record label, an independent record label, and you want to use SoundOn as your choice for a distributor, then they'll be building upon our relationship with independent labels and the independent sector in general, as we hope to continue to provide an offering for that market.
Also, the versus I'm moving on to AI now.
Okay.
But so with the increase of AI generated music, how do you see A&R adapting to that change? Is that something you're embracing?
I don't know. I think like it's the suggestion in the question that people are going to start becoming fans of AI artists, and A&R people are going to start signing AI artists. Because I'm not saying it's impossible. And to some degree, yeah, sure, maybe it has happened in some circumstances to date. But I probably would speculate that AI music might become like some sort of cyborg scenario with artistry, and that it will have a place within artistry, but certainly not take the place of artists at the human level.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be encouraging of that notion either, if that answers the question.
Do you think AI in general will maybe start helping with A&R cousins?
Well, AI does already help in so much as, there are all these analytical offerings out there that can help A&R people quantify their findings and also discover music for them. So if I have a tool that helps me find the top 100 unsigned songs on YouTube in the UK, that is based on AI algorithms that aggregate software. So I think it's already happening.
Is there something SoundOn is doing right now with AI that you can tell us about?
SoundOn is not doing anything with AI, no.
Do you see it become like figures?
I mean, not really, not with SoundOn. Maybe, but like only in probably not very particularly exciting context. I've had managers who manage AI artists, or whatever that even means. I think it's an area that's continuing to be understood as it unfolds in front of us. It's not really in any way anything to do with my job or SoundOn AI. It's a technology that is going to be inflicted upon all of us in one way or another, whether that's me as the head of A&R SoundOn or anybody anywhere. AI, you've got holograms performing on stages in Wembley Arena as well. So I really don't know. And honestly, that's the truth. I don't know how it's going to stabilize, what it will look like when it all sort of comes out in March.
Mm-hmm. How do you think A&R in general evolving in the next times?
I think that we have gone through a really exaggerated area of signing the wrong things as an industry for the wrong reasons as well, and misunderstanding the application of analytics in the discovery of music. What that's done is neglect, speaking specifically within the United Kingdom, what I consider it to have done is neglect artistry and over-index entertainment. Remember I said artist versus entertainment? Entertainment has been over-indexed in the signing choices of a multitude of recorded music offerings, major labels, independent, anybody who signed an artist. I truly believe that the audiences out there, these things are cyclical, and we're about to enter into a stage where the general public will demand more artistry out of the music that they seek to consume. And so therefore, with that in mind, A&R will revert back into record making and more crafted decision making and artist development, rather than, let's say, chasing one single because they find it on some viral capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that means that we can enter an age where people are almost not going back to basics, but I think slightly more traditional behaviors will resurface.
Okay. I have one friend question.
Yeah.
Do you have what advice do you have for artists, recent graduates, or young people who want to get into the music industry?
My advice would be to go for specific roles when you are doing so. Try and tailor your ambition to the role itself. Whilst doing so, do something of your own accord. I've heard from some of you today that you were a club promoter, or you managed a band, or you wrote a blog. Do something yourself is the number one piece of advice I can give you. My number two piece of advice would be just be out there. Go to the right shows, meet the right people, and just be cool. As long as you continue to move forward in some capacity, you're doing the right thing. Getting a job at a big 4-story company or not will not ultimately, as long as you choose for it not to, it's not going to define whether or not you have a career in the music industry.
Mm-hmm.
So while you're waiting to figure it out and get a role that will stabilize your position in the business, do something that will, create, carve that out for yourself, whether it's managing an act or putting on a club night or whatever it is. That can do some.
Oh, thank you. Any questions?
You were putting a bit earlier about it just being the music. If let's say we had a song post of 1 million people, and also bringing in the AI and just people being AI music fans, let's say, how many people of those million do you think just wouldn't even care about artistry, wouldn't care about anything outside, purely just the music,
Purely the song,
right? Purely just a song. And how many people do you think this is the music for the art, the story behind it, who the artist is, what they stand for, all these other things that come outside of music? If we had to get 1 million people in a room, what kind of percentage split do you see?
It's an interesting question that needs nuance, because let's say if I were to say 40% of those people only care about the song, right? Who from that 40% have heard the song on the radio when they were driving their kids to school, and then they heard it again when they were on Spotify playing a playlist, bath time or whatever it is, right? And then they saw it on Graham Norton. Those three scenarios create, a sum of all of its parts, and that's a cultural drive. It might be that they only care about the song, but their environment that's led them to be exposed to it has culture behind it. So can you just have a song with no artist behind it and it truly drives you over the top is a question that can't be answered because it's not a real life scenario. But I would say if you asked 1 million people, do you only care about the song or not? 40% say only care about the song. The remainder have extreme variance in how much they care about the story behind the song, to the point that they might think back, you're all too young, but when before downloads and piracy, people went to record stores and people bought some CDs because the artwork looked like something they would maybe like the sound of the music of. That does still exist in one capacity or another. It's very, very, very difficult, I think, to culturally attach yourself to a song without any context. Yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but I think
just wanted to see what
I think the regular person out there in the street doesn't really care about the background, but that doesn't mean the background hasn't led them to the song. So therefore, without it, it's hard to sort of judge whether it would have ever reached their ears. Yeah. You had a question?
Yeah, I don't actually really know that much about music business, so I do. It's gonna start ignorant. So
No, it's just
you sing and there's of entertainment. And obviously, you know, people can like sign on. So like even companies like apps, like they're in it to make money, right? So your portfolio of people that you sign, especially nowadays, it's probably going to be like a mix of it, right? So I don't want to reduce people like that. Like people that you sign for the appeal that they have in an entertainment practice, even if maybe the artistry that they have isn't necessarily as exemplary or like not desirable, but like
Credible.
KSI, for example.
as someone else is. So how do you think it's important for people to consider like not the preservation of art, but also kind of like the preservation of art when going through credit, or do you think like the prioritization of it is not right?
I don't think that you would genuinely find anyone who truly is in the music industry to make money. And the reason that is because there are a million better examples of how to make money than to be in the recorded music industry, which is then streaming rather than live, let's say. It's exceptionally hard to make money out of music. And so to be in the music industry would suggest that you are there for the love of the music in some varying degree. In order to sustain your career in the music industry, you know, of course you need to make money, but it's not an easy thing to do, and the margins aren't easy either. So I think that it's maybe more about having cultural success, which manifests itself as profitable, right? So if I sign an artist and you go to number one, it's definitely the fact that it's number one that keeps you going rather than this record made £35,000. Do you know what I mean? No one really actually, and I really mean this, they don't care. They care about the success metrics culturally and how that will lead them on to the next one. The money is sort of a byproduct. It's really not easy to make money in the music industry. So I think it's not a credible suggestion that people are in it for that reason. But you've got to, you can't continuously, let's say this, you can't just be reckless either. You can't continuously lose money. You do have to sustain business. And that therefore the choices you would make as an A&R or otherwise in a recorded music entity are such that you want to go after something that will provide you with sustainable business. If you're in more of a distribution based environment or major label or a major distributor, it's definitely probably more realistic to have a expansive portfolio that can span those more entertainment opportunities as well as slightly more tasteful, even more left field offerings that might give you a bit more of a passion play. It just depends really. That said, there are plenty of like labels who deal with one or the other. It's hugely variable. I don't know if that answers the question.
It was like a similar question about like what you were saying about the rejection of analytics and like when prioritizing just the site. Is that based on analytics or is that based on sentiment or just a personal opinion? And then kind of follow on from that, you work within TikTok, which I know a lot of people would say is a reason analytics are so prioritized, or at least given much better tool for quantifying stuff when. So how are you going to balance your idea that actually signing people is depending to less quantified or analytical basis and then working with data?
Yeah, I think that analytical touch points don't live exclusively within TikTok. I mean, areas of Spotify such as the Viral 50 and things like that are largely responsible for how A&R people behave around analytics when they're making decisions around who to sign. I suppose people can let the analytics get in the way of what it is that they're finding and why people are engaging with something. Or the marketplace dictates how you put a deal around the situation. If I have a very, 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 very viral record from kind of a crap artist who just got lucky with this one song, as a label, you might be forced into doing an album deal for the artist just to win the deal because all you care about is the song. And therefore, you're left with the song plus having to make the remainder of the album with the artist, and that immediately not working. So the competitive nature of the marketplace also dictates the decisions people make. They also might want to stay in a job if they're in a certain type of label environment and have to sign something that gives them at least a perception of success. I don't think it's the rejection of analytics isn't really what I'm suggesting, but maybe limiting the analytics being what's responsible for your decisions. I've always championed use of analytics within discovery, right? But there are people out there who rely on them too much for decision making, right? So it's maybe not comfortable for an A&R person to find a track that's going up and up and up in the viral 50 on Spotify or somewhere in TikTok, but it's a jokey song. It's like a comedy. Let's say it's like a comedy rap record, right? People are listening to it for a bit of fun. You're not sticking it in your headphones when you go out for a run, right? Or you won't be in a year at least. So then it's about holding your nerve as an A&R person. But you know what? This isn't what I'm trying to achieve with my decision making, and I'm comfortable with not trying to chase this record because I know that in the space of one more, two more singles from this artist, it won't be at the same level, and I'll be left having to deal with that. So therefore, I'm going to sign the artist who's far lower down right now because I believe in their music and I believe myself that the exposure to that music will create fans and audiences. In that capacity, it's a rejection of analytics. I don't know if was there any more of the question I haven't answered? No. Okay.
Then kind of along the lines of previous question. And nowadays we are living in a world where there's just so much to consume and there's so much short form content. And a lot of that probably does also come from TikTok. Would you say that part of SoundOn's mission is to kind of cut through that lines to get back to like the authenticity that we were saying, like we miss nowadays?
I think that SoundOn's mission should really only be to provide a service to anybody who wants to deliver their music to an audience. Us being SoundOn means that we are close to the understanding of TikTok, and that's not our only operation. We deliver music and strategy to the entire ecosystem of music consumption. People discover music on Instagram or the radio or Spotify or Apple as well. We seek to make that happen as much. What was the question again?
Just trying to find the music that you really connect. You cut through like all of the content that's.
I think we definitely hope to be able to deliver audiences for our artists, and that in itself is cutting through the noise. I don't know. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. What reason would you give for like an artist wanting to work with you compared to like, let's say, I don't know if he is a competitor per se, but it's like, why would someone want to work with you? Like, what would you say your edges and stuff like that?
I think that like it's only obvious that our edges that we're plugged into the platform, to TikTok, right? And right now, culture does overwhelmingly flow through TikTok. So, if it were me competing with anybody else, I would say, look, like if developing an audience on TikTok for your for you as an artist of the song is what's most important to you, then we should be the right home for you, because we are powered by TikTok. We have a deep understanding of our own platform, like nobody else. I think it would be worrying to think that anyone else understands TikTok better than themselves, right? So in that scenario, we would probably, I would say that would give us the edge.
If an artist sign like multiple at the same time, they say, is there are there deals where artists sign with multiple distribution?
No. Well, I mean, you can have your repertoire spread across multiple partners for sure, but you couldn't sign one song to multiple distributors. Well, you could if you were doing, like, let's say ADA, you use as an example. You could sign a song, right? ADA, you've got the song for the United States of America. SoundOn has it for the rest of the world. That is possible, and it is done. But that would be how. Yeah. So I'd say, just to answer your question with clarity, the edge we have would be that we're experts in our own app, TikTok, whilst servicing the records in the same way as everybody else in the square.
What's your favorite part? What you do?
Favorite part of what I do is the signing, discovering a record when it has no heat around it, and watching it go from that to, let's say, a top 40 single in the UK, or going from 5,000 streams a day to 1 million, and being there for every step of the journey. That's for sure the favorite part of my job. Watching the artist development unfold for you, and knowing that your team has been by and large responsible for that trajectory, as well as, of course, the fact that it was a record that has the capacity to connect with an audience in order to do so. That's the favorite part of my job. Yeah.
Same as being a fan, basically.
Do you think so?
Yeah. I think that's how fans are too. We like seeing, let's say, our favorite artists. Let's say you found them at 30K listeners and followers or whatever, and see them go to millions and millions. It's great.
That's definitely true of fans who are linked in a specific way. I think there are also fans out there who only care. They can only find assurance in taking the first step into being a fan by the very fact that there already are millions of fans in certain circumstances. The more mainstream audiences, the Radio 1 audiences, for example. But yeah.
And then you get to say
Yeah, I remember doing that.
Do you and your team ever go out and watch live music to find new talents?
I probably go out to gig twice a week. Yeah.
Any recommendations?
Anything upcoming I couldn't think of from the top of my head. I'm not sort of reliant on my diary and being told what to go to. Mm-hmm. I did go to a gig last Thursday, an artist called Chloe Keisha in Bermondsey Social Club. It was phenomenal. So I suppose it's a retrospective recommendation on that basis. Yeah. But where it's great for speaking of venues that often is a good circuit for A&R or music discovery, tends to be places like the Social on Oxford Street, the Waiting Room up in Stoke Newington, sometimes Camp and Assembly, the Old Blue Lass, Seabright Arms. Those sorts of venues are often where I would end up finding myself. There's a new one as well called the Lower Third on Denmark Street. It's very often I would be there for shows. So check out the listings on those venues. You'd probably be okay.
What's the most challenging part of your role?
I think the most challenging part of my role is the competitive nature of the market right now. Like I said before, there've never been more opportunities and options for artists and labels in the marketplace right now, and therefore it's never been more competitive to successfully sign an artist and work with them as a partner, because if I want to work with an artist, 10 other people do as well. That's definitely the reason.
I understand there's like different parts of the business, but when you're actually part of the records with this kind of artist, when you where was it one that you were?
Yeah, Parlophone Records.
Yeah. When you're that part of thing, or just generally like, what is the view of the traditional kind of music sector on maybe more like not necessarily innovative, but just newer kind of tech music projects that you work with? Is it competitive or would it down?
I think very well established entities within music do find it hard to rapidly adapt to new technologies or new ways of thinking. That may be because their historical business model and structure would be in jeopardy by merely even adhering to the idea of adjusting their ways of thinking to a new scenario. So very, very well established companies within recorded music are often the last to acknowledge the new reality they find themselves in.
Yep.
The intersection of like tech and music, which is where you're at, we do see that maturing, evolving, and adapting in, let's say, 5-10 years time. Where do you think we're going to be?
I think so. Within the live industry, right? You've got booking agents. Are you guys familiar with that area of live industry? So booking agents they make their money by taking 10% of an artist's concert fee by essentially, coordinating the whole scenario of servicing the artist and looking after their live business, right? I see recorded music going down an entirely service-based scenario in which I'll be the record label for the artist by providing them with an artist development service, and that will come in the manifestation of taking a percentage of the royalty like the agent does in live, as opposed to signing them for a 3-album deal on a very fixed, 50-50 or even more scenario. It'll almost be more like I think that's where it's headed, and that is due to the advent and the nurturing of distribution as an offering anywhere. And then I see distribution as a model on the rise, and sort of more record label or in perpetuity based deals with artists in decline. Yeah.
Tim? Okay. Well, last question. Favorite record?
Favorite record? Oh, single or album?
Okay.
Album of all time?
Let's do both.
Most of
Let's do
What
both.
do most people do?
most people will just make 5 if they can't. So if you would like.
Okay, most favorite records of all time. I'll do 5 then. It might not be very interesting to you guys. Nirvana, Nevermind has to be in there. Blink-182, Ending of the State. The Sex Pistols, Nevermind the Bollocks. Radiohead, OK Computer. Oasis, definitely, maybe. They're all really boring choices for an A&R person, aren't they? That's probably they're probably the most important records
And favorite?
on a formative basis. Singles right now, Hot to Go, Chappelle Roan. Love that record. That's definitely not my most favorite single right now.
And of all time?
Oh, of all time, favorite single of all time. That's so hard to bring that all the way down to one song. Oh, I don't know if I could do. I genuinely could changes, right? Depending on what mood you're in. Of all time.
We should have burned this question.
I know.
Burn this question. Favorite artist.
Yeah, let's
Is that a bonus
that's
question?
easier.
Favorite artist of all time.
Yeah, maybe that's easier than
I probably, if you were to go in analytics, right? Not that I use analytics, right, Jim? Probably Nirvana, I would say if I really had to go there, favorite song of all time, In Bloom by Nirvana. Why not? Okay,
Cool.
then.
Alright, great.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.